into the lunch break, KDUS AM 1060. Make sure you download the KDUS AM 1060 app so you can take us with you on the go. The next layer of this onion that we are unpacking today here on the show, as again, we are inside of 26 hours until the NBA trade deadline, and I say this phrase all the time on the show as of late, but buckle up, everybody. It's going to be a bumpy next, 25 hours and 45 minutes? Last Friday when we left the show, did we think that we would spend most of the week discussing Kevin Durant being out the door, going back to Golden State? Did we expect Luka Doncic to get traded from the Mavs to the Lakers? We're in, to quote one of my favorite modern shows, Stranger Things, we're in the upside down here, everybody. I don't, what's up is down, what's down is up, left, right, I don't know anymore. So the next layer of this onion is taken directly from the story that has set the tone for all of this, and it was a great story in The Athletic from David Aldridge, Anthony Slater, and Sam Amick, who broke down Kevin Durant and his request, or not request, but the status of him being a target of the Golden State Warriors. And there's a passage in here, a sentence in here or two that I want to read that really sets the backdrop for what has a lot of Suns fans a little confused. And I'll put myself in that bucket here today. Both the Warriors and Suns have cluttered salary structures, but both ownership groups have shown a willingness to pay for players they desire. The Warriors also have a potential path to help guide Butler to Phoenix if they pull the trigger on an Andrew Wiggins-centric trade with Miami that has been discussed. Are you telling me that there is a world in which Jimmy Butler lands on a plane at Sky Harbor and is a member of the Phoenix Suns, and Kevin Durant is on a plane headed to San Francisco? I don't know the name of their airport as well as I know Sky Harbor, but SFO there in the Bay Area, and is playing for the Golden State Warriors. You mean to tell me it is a reality where the Suns, we've known for the longest time that for Jimmy Butler to walk in that front door, it would require one of Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker to also be walking through that front door, just the other direction. And we've known for the longest time it was not going to be Devin Booker. And we've known for the longest time that one of the driving forces behind Jimmy Butler coming to Phoenix was the Kevin Durant piece in all of this. So all eyes went to Bradley Beal. And now we know that that's not happening for a variety of different reasons, mainly because of the no trade clause. But you mean to tell me that there is a world where Durant is out and Butler is in? I need somebody to explain this one to me, because wasn't the entire point of all of this, wasn't the entire idea of getting Bradley Beal to waive his no-trade clause, finding somebody that would be willing to take on that contract and giving up draft picks to do so? Wasn't the idea of trading the 2031 pick for 3 first-round picks so that you could pair KD and Butler together with Devin Booker? Wasn't that the whole point of this project, the whole point of this process? If you choose to trade Kevin Durant today or tomorrow, aren't you admitting that this isn't working? Aren't you admitting that your win now window is over? That you need to reset? But instead of resetting the way you are supposed to reset, you're going to get rid of Kevin Durant and have Jimmy Butler walk in the front door? Why would you choose to admit that this iteration of the Suns was a failure? That your all-in window, your all-in bet did not pay off, and choose to make your team worse? And no, that's not just because Jimmy Butler is not as good of a player as Kevin Durant. That is true. Kevin Durant is the better player, so just from a pure talent perspective, you get worse. But Kevin Durant is your only ticket out of this once you admit that it hasn't worked. The first step in fixing your problem is admitting that you have one. By trading Kevin Durant, you are signaling to us all that you are finally willing to admit that this isn't working. Your championship window that you thought you had doesn't exist anymore. You're a one game above 500 basketball team that's barely holding on to the last play-in spot. And you're going to trade one of the players that you acquired, that you sought out to bring this franchise a championship. You are admitting by sending him back to Golden State or by sending him to Houston or by sending him to Dallas that this isn't working. You are admitting that it is time to reset, retool, rebuild, whatever word you want to use to market it and package it. That's what you're signaling by trading Kevin Durant. So if you are going to go down that path, you have to make sure that you set yourself up for the future. You can't trade Kevin Durant and get Jimmy Butler back and extend him. You then have an asset that's going to be worth less immediately. It's like when you buy or lease the new car and the moment you drive it off the lot, it depreciates in value. That's what the Suns would be doing to the long-term health of their franchise. The moment they make this trade, they're in a worse spot than they were before the trade happened. They're in a worse spot because they have a player who they may or may not extend. And pairing him with Devin Booker, that is a worse duo than Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And if you choose to then admit again that it failed, you have an asset that's worth less. I ask this question somewhat rhetorically. Do you know how difficult it's been for Miami to trade Jimmy Butler? Imagine a world where Kevin Durant leaves and Jimmy Butler walks through that front door, and this doesn't work out, and now Jimmy wants out again. Do you expect there to be this parade of teams like there are right now? There's a parade of them, at least three. Golden State, Houston, and Dallas that are poking around Kevin Durant. Do you expect to have the same suitors and the same trade packages if you get to that place with Jimmy Butler? And don't tell me that you can't get to that place because it happened in Minnesota, it happened in Philadelphia, it's happening in Miami, it happened in Chicago. It has happened at every single stop for Jimmy Butler. Why wouldn't Phoenix be any different? Especially if you trade for him and you say, you know what, Jimmy, we're just going to see this year out. If you pick up your player option, we'll see that year out too, but we're not giving you the contract extension. You're going to be in the same place Miami was in. Why would you choose to make a critical blunder from a team-building perspective? If you are going to, for a brief moment, get off the ride of competing for a championship, to just kind of reprioritize a little bit, need a different roster, this isn't working, and you're going to trade the one asset, because I told you in the last segment, Devin Booker's not going anywhere. You're going to trade the one asset because you can't trade Bradley Beal. You're not trading Devin Booker. The one asset that could potentially, it's your lifeline. It's the life preserver. It's the escape pod to potentially allow you to not suck for 15 years. It's the one thing that might allow you to do this in 3 to 5 and be right back in the mix when maybe a team like Oklahoma City, their championship window is on the back nine. Houston, their championship window could be on the back nine, and you could be ready, armed with draft picks and young assets and tradable contracts so that you can trade for De'Aaron Fox when he becomes available. You could potentially trade for an all-star if they shake loose in the offseason like a Karl Anthony Towns did for the Knicks. But instead of taking that, you're going to, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, you're going to make it worse. If you're going to trade for Jimmy Butler, it better mean that Kevin Durant is staying on the Phoenix Suns. That's why I have such a tough time thinking that this reporting, and I know it's well-sourced reporting, I'm not in taking the reporting and throwing it in question, it just doesn't add up to me. Another one of our favorite phrases, the math ain't mathin'. It doesn't add up. 2 plus 2 does not equal 4 here for me. It just doesn't. If Matt Ishbia and James Jones put together a team post-trade deadline that has Jimmy Butler and Devin Booker as the main stable, they're a worse basketball team. Think about what I'm saying. I am saying that that is a worse basketball team than a team that is in a playoff spot right now, one game above 500. They have the hardest schedule the rest of the way. What do you think that's going to look like? If you thought getting swept in the first round of the playoffs last year was an embarrassment and was disgusting, wait till you see what the second half of this season looks like over the remaining 30-plus games when they play all of these teams, when they play Oklahoma City, when they play Houston and Memphis and San Antonio. They'll be lucky to finish above 500. Kevin Durant out, Jimmy Butler in makes the Phoenix Suns worse, not just for this championship window, but it makes it worse. There's no path out. There's no exit ramp. What is the realistic ceiling for a team that has Butler, Booker, and Beal? I'll tell you what, it's much lower than the ceiling that this team has now. And the ceiling's not that high for this group. Barely holding on to a play-in spot. Nowhere near any conversation about winning the Western Conference. Nowhere near any conversation of winning a championship. And that's with one of the best 5 players on the planet on your roster. And you're going to trade him and send him out the door. And again, I'm fine with discussing Kevin Durant being traded. I'm all for it. We told you on yesterday's show, what are they closer to, rebuild or championship? Answer that question. It tells you what they're supposed to do with the deadline. They're closer to a rebuild than they are to a championship. So trading Kevin Durant is something I can get on board with. I can't get on board with trying to do this half in, half out. Oh, we're kind of moving on and admitting our failures, but not really. And all in all, you're making your team worse in the process. I thought the entire point of all of this was to get Kevin Durant and Jimmy Butler together. You tell me that there's a world today, 25 hours from the NBA trade deadline, where Kevin Durant isn't on the Phoenix Suns, but they're still going for it and their replacement is Jimmy Butler? You can't convince me that that world is a world that makes sense for the short and long-term future of the Phoenix Suns. You can't tell me that that's the right course of action. You may not want to trade Kevin Durant, or you may want to trade Kevin Durant. Either way, this potentially is the worst-case scenario. I never thought in a million years I would have to discuss the idea of Jimmy Butler still coming to the Phoenix Suns, even if Kevin Durant was walking out the front door. An absolutely absurd line of logic. You would make your basketball team worse in both the short and the long term. You would force us to ask a lot of questions of where you're at as an organization. And trust me, I have plenty of them today.